Hello there, it's Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and you. It's your show. I'm Jerry Usher along with Debbie Georgiani. What everyone is talking about. Well, people might be talking about what we're talking about because we're going to be asking you the question today. Is anything in our lives private anymore? Any of our
No.
communications, things we say, things we do, even things we think sometimes with
No.
all of the technology and devices and gadgets and surveillance and all of this stuff. We want to hear from you, Take Two family, on your thoughts on all of this. Do you think that there's just everything that we do is in some form or another monitored or watched or surveilled or something? 833-288-3986. Start calling right now. Debbie.
So your first question, you said, is anything private anymore? No. Is everything being monitored? Yes.
Okay. Well, we're doing another show on Monday. That wraps up today. So thank you very much. Have a great weekend, everyone.
No, but you were sharing some interesting stories, Jerry. I hope you share them with our Take Two family. But we're asking the question today, is anything private anymore? Like everything, like Alexa and, Ring doorbell cameras and all sorts of electronics that are like monitoring smart TV, smartphone, smart everything. It's kind of, a lot of people said it's so smart it's making us stupid, right? So we've heard that before. So, folks, there's a lot to say about this, but we want to know, what do you think? The Take Two family, maybe it's a good thing that we're being monitored, we're being watched all the time, that they're listening to everything, all the conversations we have. Or maybe you think that's just a conspiracy and it's not really true. Or maybe you think it's very, very dangerous because we really do need to maintain some level of privacy and respect of other people's private conversations and things like that. Okay, so here is the phone number. Please dial in 833-288-3986. That's the number to call. Don't get started with your weekend yet. Okay, we need your help. So please stop what you're doing, put your lunch down, and make that call.
All right. Well, have you had this experience before? I was sharing this with our producer Ace and Debbie off the air. There have been times, actually, I've been thinking about something that I wanted to do an internet search for, and it just comes up as maybe not the very top search result, but it's very, very close to the top. And then there are times, a lot of times, when I've been talking, like on the show, Debbie, we're talking about whatever a caller brings up on the show. We're talking about it, and I want to research a little bit more on that particular thing they're mentioning. So I'll go to do it, just open up a new browser window, and it just comes right up. So I don't know, Take Two family, what's your experience with this? What are your feelings, your thoughts, your emotions about all of this? Maybe you think, nothing to worry about. Is it anything to worry about? I don't know. I don't lose sleep over it at night. But we just want to know what you think about, with our technology, our text messages, voicemails. Everywhere you go, there's a camera watching you in street corners and on freeways and
Multiple ones.
buildings and all of that stuff. So we're asking the question today, is anything we say or do, or maybe even think, is anything we say or do private nowadays, or is it accessible to somebody somewhere? I don't know who that might be, but want to hear from you at 833-288-3986.
So a couple things I just wanted to share with our listeners while you're dialing in, 833-288-3986. You don't have to be Catholic to call in. We're asking the question, is anything private? We'd like to hear your responses, your wisdom on this. Please stop what you're doing and make that phone call. I do have my St. Vincent de Paul hat on because I'm right after the show. I'm leaving for the airport to go to Alexandria, Louisiana for the Fullness of Truth conference. I'm super excited about it, but I'm wearing my St. Vincent de Paul ball cap on purpose because I just found out 2 nights ago that we have some homeless folks living in our neighborhood community Greenbelt area. And so that's whenever I hear anything like that, it's all the more reason why we need to pick up the phone and help St. Vincent de Paul, because they're trying so hard to get folks proper housing and the skills they need to get some work and clothes and all sorts of things. So I love St. Vincent de Paul. They do such a great job. And there's other organizations as well that do wonderful work in the communities. But it's very disturbing. Apparently it's a really nice group of folks, and there's outlets So they want to charge their phones and everything. So they're living right in the Greenbelt area. It's like a little amphitheater. But doesn't that make your heart heavy?
It does. It really does. Yeah, anytime you see something like that, you just think it just shouldn't be, but it's just the reality of life, I guess, and we got to do all that we can, like you were doing, Debbie, to help them out. So God bless you and all those who you work with to do that. So
yeah, well, the neighborhood's really kind, very kind, so that's good. But anyway, can I just say something about Alexa?
yeah,
Ours has been in the closet. Marty and I, we put Alexa in timeout in the closet about 3 years ago because it was the creepiest experience. We were having dinner and all of a sudden it started like talking. It was weird. It was listening to everything we were saying. We couldn't shut it off. But I know it's a good item to have because you can say, Alexa, play, Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, and she does it. But I don't know. What do you feel about that? These automated things that respond with voice
I've never
commands.
had one of those. But I mean,
Do you want
have
ours?
I have my own version of those. Like on my iPhone, got Siri on there, and so I do some voice commands. But yeah, that's what we're talking about today on Take Two. We got a couple open phone lines still. If you'd like to join us, get in that first group of callers. 833-288-3986. Is anything we say or do private? Hopefully it is. Hopefully there's still some places we can locate ourselves where things aren't being watched or listened to or monitored or something like that. Do you even care though? Maybe it's no big deal to you.
I don't care.
We're not taking a position. We want to know what yours is. 833-288-3986. And I want to mention something very exciting.
Tell
Father
me.
Carlos Martins just arrived at my parish.
Wow.
The people, if you know who Father Carlos Martins is, he's the exorcist priest and the relics priest. And I'm at the Basilica of St. Paul in Daytona Beach, Florida, as the seminarian doing my internship year. And he has brought the arm of St. Jude, if you can believe that. It's a relic, a bone, about a several-inch segment of the bone of the arm of the Apostle St. Jude. He was a cousin to Jesus, and that arm would have wrapped itself around Jesus many, many times. And we're expecting thousands of people. The veneration starts at 2 o'clock Eastern Time, goes until 10 Eastern, and there is a break in there for a 7 o'clock Mass in honor of St. Jude. So if anybody's in the Daytona Beach area, Central Florida area, come on over to the Basilica of St. Paul. It's going to be an amazing event. Knights of Columbus doing a 2.5-hour fish fry, and we got it going here at the Basilica today. So anyway, your thoughts on, is anything private anymore? 833-288-3986.
Saints are the heroes of the Catholic faith, serving as examples for all Catholics. View our comprehensive documentation of saints who serve as theologians and doctors of the Church at EWTN.com Catholicism.
Catechism in a Year with me, Father Mike Schmitz, is now available right here on Catholic Radio. Encounter God's plan of sheer goodness for us, revealed in Scripture and passed down through the tradition of the Catholic faith, as we journey together toward our heavenly home.
Bible in a Year and Catechism in a Year with Father Mike Schmitz, tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific on EWTN Radio.
Take Two with Jerry and Debbie is on YouTube. Search YouTube to find the EWTN YouTube channel so you'll never miss an episode of our show or any of your favorite EWTN radio shows.
This is Father Timothy Gallagher, an oblate of the Virgin Mary. Catholic radio accompanies us in the car when we drive, when our hands are busy but our minds are free. It can fill those spaces and bring us close to the Lord and help us grow in the understanding of our faith and deepen our way of living that faith each day.
The world needs EWTN Catholic Radio, now more than ever.
Okay, we're asking the question today, is anything private anymore? We need you to weigh in. Please don't get started with your weekend yet, because you always show up for us in a strong fashion every single time we broadcast. We're going on almost 9 years. We love you guys so very much. We try to always make it here every single weekday. We really expect you, the Take Two family, and if you're listening right now, you are part of the Take Two family. So is anything private anymore? We'd love to hear your thoughts on this. 833-288 3986. Please fill up those last remaining open phone lines, 833-288-3986. And Jerry, before we go to David in Cleveland, Ohio, I wanted to share with our wonderful listeners there's an employment opportunity. At EWTN, we're committed to spreading the gospel from a Catholic perspective, touching millions via television, radio, publishing, and the internet. Right now, EWTN is looking for qualified people to fill a number of exciting positions. Make a difference using your God-given talent. Visit EWTN.com/employment today.
All right, very good. Here's that phone number as Matt Gabensky is screening calls, 833-288-3986. Ace McKay, our producer. Michael McCall is watching the social media conversations. Get them going there on Facebook and YouTube. Hello to you guys. And we'd love to hear your beautiful voice as well. 833-288-3986. Well, I'm curious to know, has surveillance, like cameras everywhere, changed your behavior out in public at all? I mean, Debbie, I'll be honest with you. You know, I feel a little bit like if I see cameras or if I even think cameras are around, it sort of makes me think, you know, I mean, I'm not going to do anything wrong, but, you know, it just makes me kind of feel
put you
a
on
little
your
bit,
best behavior.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah, that's why I like it. There's a level of protection. Like, look at what you do. Before, David, hang on just one second, because this is interesting. It's exactly what Jerry was saying. It says here, a friend lived in China and cameras were everywhere and people felt safe leaving their computers and phones on tables in public and when they went to the bathroom, restroom, or left the building. I agree with that. When you have those surveillance cameras, there's a level of safety you feel. However, there was a situation that happened one time at a retail place, and I said, could you pull the video footage? And it wasn't working that day. So that's a problem.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting. All right, we're going to find out what you think. 833-288-3986. Is anything at all in our lives private anymore? David is in Cleveland. He'll go first, listening on The Rock today. Hi, David. Thanks for calling in.
Yes, you're welcome. Okay, well, first of all, I work third shift at a local campus in Cleveland, and I agree. The campus where I work, there's cameras in every department, and even some of the hallways between the departments. Mm-hmm. So the first of all, the one time the camera benefited myself and all my coworkers. We had somebody who walked in between our shift hours. I work like from 10 p.m. to like 6:30 in the morning. There was somebody who came in unannounced, and the policy for the police for the campus police campus that I work at, they need to know who's coming in. They need to be screened, and if they're students, they need to have their ID. So, and then it just so happens I was working at one of the departments, and there's a doorway, a main entrance to the one of the departments, and I had to make a call to the campus police because I had this gut feeling that somebody was trying to come in. Of course, the type doors that were installed were locked good, but I had to make sure that the person who wants to come in is a legitimate. And of course, the legitimate person was a student, but they had cameras on the person both outside and inside the department that I work in. So yes, I agree. There's a safety protection towards me and of course my other coworkers, because especially since the campus I work at is a large campus.
Yeah. So, David, you're saying it was a positive, it was a beneficial experience to have those cameras there in that situation, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You felt safe.
Yeah, and I can totally agree with that. Tragically, we've had these school shootings take place, and sometimes the video evidence is sorely lacking and stuff. So, obviously, there's a school on the campus here at the parish where I am at the Basilica of St. Paul. They, have their cameras up all over the place as well. Very, very strict regimen of how they welcome the kids in the morning, and they have walkie-talkies, and parents drive through the parking lot and they call for the kids when their parents are there. You got to be extra careful nowadays in certain environments, So, Debbie, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that, but I think the one that David is pointing out, it's I would be on board with that. I think it's definitely a good use of cameras.
I agree, David. Do you like working on the campus, David?
Well, yes. You can say I've been there for a couple years, so everything the way everybody's treating me, I have no problems. So yes, you could say that yes, I enjoy working on campus, and of course, I have no problems with the supervisor or the other coworkers I work with.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you for being a regular listener and caller to the program.
You're welcome.
God bless you, David.
Thank you. Now, David, you can go have your weekend. There you go. See how it works?
Yeah, that's how it works. And the way it works now is we open up a phone line, and you call in with your take, your maybe your lived experience, just your hunches, if you will. 833-288-3986. If you're a regular listener to this show, we cover any topic that has to do touches upon our daily lives in any way, and a lot of things are monitored nowadays. Phone calls, text messages, cameras everywhere. Voice activated, this and that. So, how do you feel about that? Do you think is there anything we can do that isn't somehow, some way, not necessarily monitored right there like live, but some accessible to somebody? 833-288-3986, and we will go ahead.
Julie. I was going to say Julie.
Go ahead. Yep.
Okay. Julie is a first-time caller, Illinois, Sirius XM 130. Hi, Julie. Welcome to the program.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Sure.
So I was going to tell you about an experience I had with my daughter. So this has been about 10 years ago, and I did used to teach high school. So I do think that definitely it was a prevailing opinion of kids back then, but I still think it holds true now. One time my daughter accused me of creeping on her when I was looking at her Facebook page. And I know kids today typically are on Instagram more than Facebook, because Facebook is for us older people now. But I thought that was very interesting that I was creeping on her even though she had posted something on the World Wide Web. And I think today kids really don't understand the globalness of what they put out there.
Well, can I comment first?
Sure.
I completely agree with you, Julie. Actually, when I do and I am going to be this weekend speaking to the youth track for the Fullness of Truth conference, and anytime I'm in front of the youth, I always stress this idea that everything you put out there, you have to be accountable for somehow, because it doesn't go away. You can't really erase it. And I know that a lot of employers, they look at past Facebook pages and things like that, or things that are on the internet circulating. And, kids can excuse it saying, oh, I was immature. That's what I did in high school. That's all well and good as an excuse. But honestly, if somebody's making an assessment on somebody, they're going to take that into consideration. And I talk to the youth all the time about it. And you're right, Julie. I don't think when you go into that immediate reactionary mode of posting something because you have that feeling that wells up and you're like, oh, I've got to do this. I've got to get it out there. I don't think that they have the maturity thinking 10 steps down the road and how this is going to affect them in the long run. And we see that with adults too. Adults react like when they start arguing on social media, they don't realize that it could cause a lot of problems for them professionally. But I don't know, other than telling people over and over again, I don't know how to get people to realize that it's really a serious thing. That's why if you go to my Facebook page, you're not going to see anything there very, it's kind of boring, but it's all religious. That's wonderful. But I'm talking about nobody's going to take it and run with it. And I think about that all the time. What do you say, Julie, about that?
Well, I think it's true. And I'll tell you another story. I supervise student teachers for the college I'm by. and I was in the high school I used to teach at talking to the resource officer. And he told me that the year that kids came back after COVID was a horrible year because the students were so used to saying whatever they wanted on social media that they were still doing this in person, and they no longer had that filter, and fights were breaking out everywhere.
Wow.
So I do think that's a big problem on social media, that people say and do things that they would never do in person.
Right. Right. I totally agree. I tell people all the time, well, you're hardly ever on social media, Jerry, so.
Yeah, I made a conscious. I intentionally stopped posting anything on social media about 4 or 5 years ago, and I'm not sorry that I did. I mean, I used it kind of like you do, Debbie. I mean, it was, inspirational stuff, faith stuff, sports stuff, things like that. But yeah, I mean, that's an amazing story, though, Julie. You should just share there. That they just it's like, yeah. Well, it gets to what you were saying, Debbie. Kind of a maturity thing. They weren't able to kind of say, I went from this environment, now I'm back in this environment. I got to kind of pull back on some of the things that I was saying or sharing. So
yeah. Any other final comments, Julie? Thanks for being a first-time caller.
Oh, you're welcome. Another comment I have real quick is just we did have security cameras in the high school, and I think it provided a level of safety in the sense that if something happened, we could go back and look at them. But because it was so routine for the kids that, again, it's a maturity thing, they would forget about them and just do stupid, crazy stuff.
Right.
And not even think, hey, I'm not going to do this on my camera. They would just totally forget. So
Right.
it provided a level of security in one sense, but really not in the fact that, like, it didn't keep them from reacting with their emotions and that kind of thing, because they just thought they were there.
yeah, wow.
But that happens with adults too. I remember Dr. Phil McGraw, the talk show host. He did this experiment where he had a bunch of couples in a home with cameras, and he was monitoring them for like a week. And after 2 days, the couples forgot about the cameras and began fighting again and having these arguments and stuff. And so he actually said to them, it's shocking that you didn't realize there was cameras everywhere, and they got used to it. So I think it's probably kind of human nature just to say, well, yeah, that's interesting, Julie. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Have a blessed weekend and call us again sometime. That will open up a line, 833-288, excuse me, 3986. Let me try that again, 833-288-3986, talking about our privacy with all the technology in the world, all the gadgets in the world, all the cameras, the listening devices. Do you feel that has changed the way you live your life, your behavior? How are we supposed to look at that? Is anything we say or do private anymore? 833-288-3986.
Okay, we really need to hear from you. You have plenty of time to get in before the end of the show. If you have something to say, if you can impart some wisdom, maybe you had a very bad experience being videotaped or something like that. We'd love to hear about it, not because we're nosy, but because we can learn and grow together. That's what Take Two is all about. Thanks for picking up that phone line there. There's another open line, 833-288-3986. Let's go to Philip in Wisconsin. Philip, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I listen to the EWTN Alabama on the radio because I've been going to, I've been doing radiation treatments at the Milwaukee VA.
Philip, are you on a speakerphone, Philip?
Yeah. Should I take it off?
It's a little muffled. Yeah, we just want to be sure we hear everything, all of your wisdom that you have to share. So.
Let me think. How's that?
Yeah, a lot better. Yeah, if you're driving, be safe.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm driving. Good. Okay, I got the phone by my ear. Let me tell her the story. Okay, now cameras. 4 years ago, I bought a home at 70 years old. And I put these Blink cameras up in the front and the back. And for 4 years now, the best thing is security, especially my 40-year-old daughter that's out of whack. Excuse me, I'm judged her, but so yeah, it's really, and the only thing that I've caught so far were a skunk and a possum traveling through the front yard. But other than that, it's security for me.
Yeah. I totally agree. I love security cameras. inside the house, outside, down the street. I think it's very important, especially in this day and age when we don't really know our neighbors that much anymore. A lot of people don't, and it's I think there's an added level of security, especially if there's, somebody at home that you want to make sure they're okay and they're safe. I'm all for it. I think it's very smart. That's the one good use of technology right there. That's what I think as a
Well,
as
when
a
we
female.
went through the
Because
pandemic, a lot of people couldn't be together, and I mean it was very sad and tragic. People lost loved ones; they couldn't be with them when they died, but it still technology provided a way for people to be quote unquote with those that they love. So
right.
Like I said, we're not taking a side on this. There's a lot of amazingly beautiful. I mean, with technology now, doctors can do surgery from halfway around the world on somebody with, video and a robot and stuff like that. So, we're just wondering if you feel like there's any privacy. Maybe you're all in favor of all of this. Maybe you have a little bit of skepticism. Please join us and let us know.
This week on The Spirit World, we're diving into the mailbag to answer your emailed questions. Hi, I'm Debbie Georgiani. My co-host Adam Bly and I receive so many questions on the occult. How blessings work, why demons do what they do, how angels help us, and so much more. So please join us on the next The Spirit World. Join us tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern for The Spirit World on EWTN Radio.
This is Tracy Sable from EWTN News Nightly. EWTN Radio brings you live and complete coverage of special events that affect your life.
I'm a DC native. I grew up in Northern Virginia. I'm actually a convert. So when I was in high school, I was pro-choice, and it wasn't until I had a tough conversation with one of my friends that I became vastly and amazingly pro-life. I mean, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be a witness to life and the beauty and sanctity of that. I'm grateful that we can all be out here today.
When I found out I was pregnant, they told me, because I was high-risk pregnancy, they told me that I can consider getting an abortion, and that's when I said, definitely not. That's not going to happen, because I think this is a blessing from God. I'm blessed now. Look at my babies. This is my blessings forever. I am a mom forever, and I am so blessed to be a mom.
Your pro-life network is EWTN Radio.
This is Doug Keck. I'll be talking with another important Catholic author on EWTN's Bookmark Saturday afternoon, 4:30 Eastern on EWTN Radio.
This is EWTN, Catholic Radio.
Dr. David Anders here. Where is purgatory in the Bible? Why confess my sins to a priest?
Find out more at 2 p.m. Eastern on Call to Communion.
Now, back to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Well, it's Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and you. It's a Friday broadcast heading into the weekend. As Debbie always says, don't start your weekend yet without staying with us for the program and joining us. And we love to say there's room and there's time. And what I mean is there's an open phone line and there's time to get you on the program with your take on this question we're asking: is anything that we say or do private anymore? Technological advances have come made life so much better in so many ways, but we're also kind of subject to not having any much, at least a lot of the privacy we used to have. So, what's your thought on this? Your take: 833-288-3986.
Here's a question I've always wanted to know this. When you go to a public place like a retail place like Target or Walmart or something like that, or you go to a restaurant, are they allowed to have cameras in the restrooms? I think, isn't it no? Isn't there a rule?
I would hope not. Yeah, I would hope not.
I'm almost positive there's a rule. If somebody works in the retail industry or they can't. Okay, they cannot have. So you cannot have it in the restrooms. Okay, I just wanted to. I always wondered that if they had like hidden cameras or something. Okay, so we have an open phone line 833-288-3986. That was Ace McKay that said they cannot have cameras in restrooms. That's good to know. Okay, who's up next? Kate. Kate is in Connecticut on Sirius XM 130. Hi, Kate.
Hi, how are you?
Great. How are you? Thanks for calling.
Thank you, and thank you for this question today.
Sure.
I personally do not believe that anything is private anymore, and that no matter where we are, we're being recorded, and our image or our voices are being captured. That being said, I think one of my concerns lately as a Catholic is that I have gone into confession many, many times where if I go face to face, the priest is sitting with his cell phone in his hand or on the table next to him. Or a few weeks ago, I went to confession and the priest had his cell phone sitting right up on the shelf between the screen between the two of us. And my husband is an attorney, so I'm well aware of how our cell phones are being used against people in court, tracking where you are. So my cell phone could ping off of the priest's cell phone and show that we were together, and then it could also produce whatever conversation we had together. So it concerns me that that might be or become a breach in the seal of confession. And also, I have actually learned, now that I kind of see that the priest has his cell phone, it has taught me I either leave my cell phone at home when I'm going to confession or I leave it in the car.
Well, and you know, a simple fix to this, because I had the same experience, Kate, twice, and it really bothered me. I mean, one of the times I went to confession, Father actually stopped the confession and talked to a friend of his. It wasn't an emergency situation. Talked to a friend, then hung up the phone and came back to the confession. And I thought, that's odd. It just struck me as really odd. I didn't understand why he had to take that call. It was clearly not an emergency. And he took the call. And I think they should just make it mandatory that cell phones stay out of the confessional. It's that simple. The priest doesn't have a cell phone and the people don't have their cell phones, you know, and there's a note on the door saying no cell phones in use. I mean, I don't know. What do you think about that, Jerry? You're being trained to become a priest. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I don't know if you knew, Kate, I'm back in formation for the priesthood, so this is kind of hitting home with me. I'm doing my internship year at the Basilica of St. Paul in Daytona Beach, but as you were talking, I thought there is no way, you know, if God willing I do advance and become a priest, there's no way I would take my phone into the confessional. And, you know, for the reasons that you mentioned, but also just because, you know, it could be a distraction for the priest. I mean, maybe he's got a few minutes in between confessions, and so he's kind of, well, what's the weather going to be like or something? You know, I just think the priest has to be present, has to be there, present to all the penitents who are coming in. And, you know, it's kind of like, you know, when you're on call for the hospital. And there are other times, like if you're in confessions, there should be another priest on call for the hospital.
That's exactly
so
right.
you shouldn't even need it for emergency situations. So that would be my take on that. I just personally speaking, I would not even consider taking my cell phone into the confessional as a priest. So what do you think?
Any final comments, Kate?
Well, I think my final comment is your call screener asked me if I had a good relationship with my priest or my confessor. And I actually do. And he actually suggested something, and I'm not sure if I have it down correctly. I still have to look it up. But he said a Faraday cage, which is something that I guess can help block those conversations, either on the priest side or the penitent side. So I thank your call screener for his comment, because it's definitely going to have me look into it. And if it seems like it's something that I could engage in a positive conversation with my priest about and my confessor about, I think I definitely would do that.
There you go.
I found it very distracting. I personally did not go back to that priest. I gave him 2 tries, and then I said, I'm done. I'm not doing this, because the phone. I go face to face to Kate, and the phone was right there. And first of all, you don't know, like, what happens if you didn't hang up the phone properly, and then somebody's listening to the conversation. The whole thing is just, I don't know. I just felt it invaded a lot of the privacy of the whole sacrament. That's how I felt anyway, Kate. But thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah, thank you, Kate, for the call. Appreciate that. Yeah, I won't say the parish. I went to confession. My last confession was in the last, I think, week or two. And it was sort of this makeshift confessional in sort of a waiting, like a lobby area with just those you know, those things you put up, partitions and stuff. And it was open. The opening to the confessional was left open. There was nothing to close that. And so I went in there and I was confessing. I was kind of like going, and bless me, Father, for I Yeah, I
You were
was
whispering.
almost wanted to whisper, and I thought
Yeah.
this is really weird.
Well, I have to tell you this, and maybe this will assist you someday down the road. As you know, I worked 25 years at the parish level, and so we were very much involved in liturgy and coordination and the general, rhythm of the whole church and all the sacraments and everything. So I was a stickler about playing Gregorian chant in the church when there were open confessionals, when they did those partitions. And I would have the AV guys turn on Gregorian chant so that it would drown out the sounds of the conversations. And I would also require that people stood back not 6 feet, but 12 to 15 feet, because you can still hear the conversations, especially if it's an elderly person that talks a little, maybe has to talk a little louder for some hearing issues or something like that. And so I have always been a stickler. And as a matter of fact, when I go into other parishes, it's really bad. You don't want me visiting your parish, because if I go to confession at a parish and I see that it's done improperly, or there's that sense that somebody could be listening in to somebody else's confession, I'm the first one to pull an usher over or somebody at the church and say, hey, this needs to be fixed immediately, because that's not fair. And I've had a lot of people thank me. They've said, thank you so much. We just didn't realize it. And they've told me, a lot of the parish workers have told me, it's not that we don't care and it's not that we don't have a protocol in place. It's that we just do so many confessions during the week, we forget. So people just need to be reminded. And that's what I think, even with the cell phones coming into the confessionals, people just need to be reminded. I do the same thing that Kate does. I leave my cell phone in the car. Do you leave yours in the car?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I do too.
Yeah. Here at the Basilica, they not only play Gregorian chant pretty, I say adequately loudly, but there's also at the holy water font it sort of is a little like a running thing, so it definitely drowns it all out. But anyway.
Yeah.
I remember. I'm reminded of the famous case in Oregon in the 1990s. That gentleman who was in prison, and they audio recorded his confession, and they wanted to admit that into the evidence in his trial.
Oh, wow.
And the church just fought that vociferously, and the Catholic Church won because, and even in a state like Oregon, of course, this was 30 plus years ago. But it's a total violation of the seal of the sacrament, the sacredness of the sacrament of confession.
I was just going to say that the sacrament of reconciliation is such a sacred sacrament in our church, a healing sacrament. It has to be protected and done properly. All our sacraments have to be done properly, and it's just important that we take that time. We don't do it, just like, oh, whatever. We'll just put up stations and have confessions. I know they have to do that sometimes because some of these mega parishes have a ton of people coming to confession, which is a great problem to have. That's wonderful. You want people using the sacrament, the healing sacrament of confession, and coming to the sacrament. But with that, they have to do these makeshift areas of the church to have the actual confession take place. And some of those are not really that, they're kind of open and not really secure when it comes to sounds.
Yeah. Well, we're asking that question today on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. There is still time to get you on the program with your expert analysis. As always, you are the ones who drive this program each and every day with your wisdom, your insights, and most of all, your lived experiences. And we're asking, is anything we say or do private anymore? Do you utilize those voice-activated gadgets at home, Alexa and so forth? I mean, we promote it here on our show on EWTN because you can tell Alexa to play Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, and Alexa will do that. So things like that have a lot of good uses. But what about those things, the cameras, the cell phones, the texting, anything. 833-288-3986.
Marty's got a really cool thing that I am so glad that he got finally. He's got those cameras on the front of his windshield, the front windshield of the car, and the rear. The rear window, and he's got those cameras so that if there's God forbid an accident or something like that, it's all being recorded. Because I've thought of that sometimes. Have you ever thought of that? Like if there's an emergency or some kind of crime taking place, and I'm thinking, how fast can I get to my phone? And one time I tried it, it took me forever to hit the record button. You know,
Yeah.
have you ever thought about that? Because I
Yeah.
know, because I
Oh,
see
yeah.
all these kids, they can do it so fast. They turn on the recorder so fast.
No, they're used to all of that.
I know.
The
I
younger
know.
generation. 833-288 EWTN 833-288-3986 EWTN open line coming up a little bit later on today. What questions do you have about your Catholic faith? Or maybe you are not a Catholic, but you would still like to ask something about the Catholic Church, our beliefs, our practices, our liturgy, our sacraments, our faith, prayer, discipline, anything like that. It's EWTN Open Line. Theology. Our Vice President of Theology, Colin Donovan, is the guest, I should say the expert today on EWTN Open Line. You can start calling in with your questions for that show at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday, right here on EWTN Radio.
Look at you guys go. You're filling up all the phone lines. I love this. Look at this. They're all, you guys are so funny. I love the Take Two family. Although the only thing is you waited till like the last half of the show, but we'll go really fast. Jerry and I can go fast. It's Friday and I gotta catch an Uber to the airport. So we'll go really fast. I can already feel that adrenaline to try and do, what do you call that? Like a lightning round?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, before we go back to the phone, what are your topics? What are you talking about at the conference?
Thank you for asking. Blessed Carlo Acutis.
Oh, yeah,
and
you mentioned that.
Yeah, Blessed Carlo Acutis, Eucharistic miracles. I'm talking about the 7 C's of the Eucharist. I can't let you know what they are. I'd have to do a whole show on it, and you have to be at the conference. But it's really one of the things I'm talking about is gaining clarity through receiving and staying in touch and connection with the Eucharist.
Beautiful.
Thank
Well,
you.
we'll pray for safe travel and you and all the speakers who are there.
Thank you. Well, you know I'm excited because I'm doing the teen track, so I'm really excited to speak to the teens. That's good. That's really cool.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Joe in Birmingham, listening on Sirius XM 130. Hi, Joe.
Hello.
Welcome.
I've been listening to y'all talking about cameras and devices and all those things, and
Sure.
and yes. Particularly with cameras, I want to put a word of caution. I'm in the security business. There are hundreds of camera makers out there, and the greater majority of them have little to no encryption. What encryption does is place into electronic devices to help prevent hacking. And there are many popular brands out there that are well known, not going to mention any names, that have little to no encryption. And so when you buy cameras, particularly in your house, all the cameras these days are connected up to the internet. So a camera without a strong encryption is a gateway for hackers to get into your internet service. And once they're in there, they have access to everything you do on the internet, banking or whatever. So I encourage people to, if they're going to purchase cameras, first of all, my suggestion is do not put them in your home. All cameras are streaming 24 hours a day. Hackers, again, as I alluded to earlier, can hack in and watch your every move in your own personal house. Now, if you have one for, an ill person or something like that, there are cameras out there that have very high encryption. That's what you want. That helps prevent hacking on your internet. So just be aware of those things and keep in mind the majority of them do not have it. One final thing, excuse me, I'm sorry. One final thing regarding the phone. If you read when you do your updates, it'll pretty much tell you, yes, we are listening. I mean, that's how, the popular ones hear when you give a voice command, and it's that same thing with your base units in the homes too. Those two have little to no encryption. So there are things you can do if you read in the updates. They'll tell you how you can lessen their ability to hear and that type thing. So not carrying your phone into confession, and particularly for priests, if any are listening. Don't do that. It is, in my opinion, violating the oath because someone has the ability to, particularly in this day and time with artificial intelligence, to it's good and it's bad. In my opinion, it's more bad than it is good.
Well, Joe,
But,
Joe, we're so glad you called in. So glad, because this is wonderful, because this is a worldwide audience. So maybe there are a lot of priests, pastors, bishops listening. So this is fabulous. You did a lot of good today with your call. Real quick question. Getting those ones that are encrypted or in the encryption that you're talking about, aren't they much more expensive? Aren't they like 4 times the price?
absolutely they are. But those saying you get what you pay for, is it worth the additional money for the protection of you maybe not getting robbed through a hacker? The average hacker is in your computer 180 days before you know about it. They're just observing keystrokes and that type thing. And some of them can even access cameras. In fact, I'll say this one quick thing because it's national news. A few years ago, a woman bought a camera to put in her daughter's bedroom because she worked at night and she had seizures. Even though the father was there, she wanted to look in on her. And a guy hacked in through a very popular brand, claimed to be Santa Claus, talking to the little girl. So, and again, that was national news about 3 years ago, and there's been a couple other national news things like that. But I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention.
Wow.
Fascinating.
Yeah. You're amazing, Joe. Will you stay in touch with us? Because you have a wealth of information that we can tap into.
Well, I appreciate that. Yes, I do listen to you, try at least a couple, 2 or 3 times a week. And
thank you.
It's just what I've done for most of my life in the security business.
Well, God bless you, Joe. Yeah, you've shed a lot of light on this topic today with your input. We appreciate that very, very much. We're going to go next to Tricia, who's in Columbus, Ohio, listening on St. Gabriel Radio. Hi, Tricia. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you.
Sure.
I just had a comment about the cell phone. One time at Mass, just after the homily, we had a parishioner who collapsed in the pew, and Father went back to the sacristy to call 911. And I just thought, if he's in the confessional with the person and they have a medical emergency, it would be much more expedient if he could call 911 immediately and get the emergency squad there for an emergency. And that might be one reason for him to have his phone with him turned off, but in the confessional.
Right. You know, the only thing about that, though, Tricia, is we had that situation at one of the parishes I worked at, and Father just we had a medical situation happen, and Father stepped out of the confessional and asked somebody in line to call, and that's how he did it. And so because he didn't have his phone with him, because typically there's more than one person there in the church. But I see what you're saying. What do you think about that, Jerry?
Well, Tricia, I don't know. Were you listening to what Joe was just sharing right before you came on?
I didn't hear all of it. No.
Yeah, he just said that he seemed pretty savvy on this stuff. He's in the security business, and he even said with regard to cell phones that those can be accessed and hacked, and there's just the potential is there. At least he was kind of implying that the potential is there for people to listen in on that, and I mean. I don't know. I mean, this brings up, it kind of touches upon a similar issue, Debbie, that I sometimes have wondered about. Maybe you have a insight onto this, but when Mass is being celebrated and there's a medical emergency and the priest is right in the middle of the consecration,
right?
Doesn't the priest? I mean, obviously he says, "Is there a doctor here? Somebody call 911," but the priest doesn't necessarily stop.
No.
I don't know what happens in a situation like that.
Well, I can tell you, I've done this for many years. We have several medical emergencies during the liturgy, or we've had also interruptions by people that had brain health issues, and Father kept going. He didn't stop. Usually, a sacristan or an usher or somebody else who worked at the church or an off-duty police officer, if they were there, they usually stepped in very quickly and handled the situation, or a nurse or a doctor. So that's the beauty of being at the parish. You're usually not alone, and that's the good news about that. Right, Trish?
That's true. And I know Father had us all pray the Hail Mary continuously while he called the emergency squad. But most, I don't know, people may have their cell phones with them. Some people don't bring their cell phones into church. So,
right.
And this was many years ago. I mean, I think cell phones were less common.
Right.
This is probably 20 years ago.
Right. Well, I do know that usually in the back sacristies, that's where everybody would keep their cell phones before the mass started, and then also there's also landlines back there as well. So there's that ability to call out. So. Thank you, Trish, so very much. God bless you. Have a beautiful weekend. Maria's up next in Houston, Texas. You'll be our final caller today, and we wanted to squeeze you in from Guadalupe Radio Network. Hi, Maria.
Hi. Yes, so just quick, I agree with everything everyone said, and the sacrament of confession is holy, and why not treat it as, when the Pope is getting voted? Though I believe the Vatican doesn't allow for any phones or any kind of electronics. That should be treated sacred for the confessional. I totally agree. Like, that's something so sacred that, there should be no phones. I personally leave my phone in the car, or, don't take it or turn it off all the way. But yeah, I totally agree. It's a holy sacrament. Treat it like one. I did have an experience where a priest had a phone and it was going off. It was very disrespectful. I had to go to another parish and get a confession somewhere else. So, yeah. But yeah, it's my personal thing.
Well, I think you're making sense, Maria. Wise comments, and the priests have been hearing confessions for over 2,000 years now, and only about 20 or 30 of those years with the technology, cell phones, and other technology available to us like that. So, I think we just need to keep that in mind. Debbie, we and Maria, we go down these roads of technological advances, and things become better and better. But the point is, just because you can doesn't mean you should. We still need to really, really safeguard, especially those things that are sacred, those intimate moments. There's no more intimate moment, really, between, other than maybe receiving communion, than between a person and their God, Jesus Christ, who through the priest absolves them of their sins. And so I feel I'm on board with what Maria shared.
Yeah, I am as well, Maria. And then there's also, I will tell you, I just heard a story a couple days ago that there was a priest who really and truly took the sacrament very seriously. And a mom came into the confessional with a little baby in her arms, and he had asked that the baby needs to step out of the confessional because it's just for the one person. So that's taking it very, even though the baby, probably couldn't understand anything yet. It was baby was only a couple months old. But it's very interesting, Maria. Thank you so much for weighing in from Houston, Texas. We appreciate it. What a great show. I learned so much. I'm so glad that everybody called in. And then Joe put that bow and ribbon right on the gift by sharing some very important information with us.
Yeah. As always, Take Two family, you did a great job. And stick around for Dr. Ray if you want to. Otherwise, as Debbie says, you can get on with your weekend now. Dr. Ray may or may not like us saying that, but no, he's got a great show. Be sure you stick around for The Doctor Is In. And our show on Monday, we're going to be talking about grandkids, I guess, right?
I love that. And we titled it My Grandkids Rock. Do you have the best grandkids in the whole entire world? Well, Monday's show is the show that you want to light up every single phone line and shout it to the world. Right, Jer?
That's right. Today, the Feast of St. Polycarp. We're going to ask him to pray for us. And again, if you're in the Central Florida area where I am, come to the Basilica of St. Paul in Daytona Beach. We have the relic, a segment of the arm of St. Jude, the Apostle St. Jude. It's going to be venerated from 2 until 10 p.m., a Mass in honor of St. Jude at 7 with Father Carlos Martins, and we're expecting a huge crowd, so please join us. In the meantime, safe travels, Debbie. Have a great conference. Thank you, Take Two family, show team, and affiliates. Until Monday, God bless. Have a great weekend.